notion and the future of American power, in which with due research, he has highlighted one aspect that 21st century is going to be driven by the commercial basket, which is going to be revolving in the subcontinent, that is Indian subcontinent. And if that be so, there are many multiple factors and organizations which are interested not to see India rising. So be it the George Soros or the China's Hand United Front Works Department, or the multiple organizations which are into making sure that India's growth projections do not go as visualized. So with that backdrop, now let's take a look at the issues which are happening internally or locally in Bangladesh. There is an issue related to the religion. There is an issue related to, I would say, politics. There is an issue related to terrorism. And there is an issue related to the economy. These are major issues. There are many other issues. Out of all this, Bangladesh is actually lost sight of the fact that it is walking into fire. It is walking into Bangladesh, from my side, if I may be allowed to say, that if the country exists, then the country like China will penetrate into Bangladesh, mindful of the fact China has already invested $38 billion, out of which 18 to 20 billions have been committed on the ground, be it the infrastructure, be it the security architecture which is coming up in form of the dockyards, naval dockyards, and the connectivity in terms of the railway line, the bridges, the Padma Bridge and the national highways. And importantly, China is looking at the 60 trillion the cubic centimeter of cubic meter of the gas which is available in Bangladesh and Tripura border, and they want to actually access to that particular issue. So likewise, China, whether it is BRI or otherwise, has penetrated into Bangladesh in a significant manner. But there are also people like George Soros who are playing game. So in this, when you ask that pertinent question, the red line has been crossed. India as a nation, as a big power here in the region, must actually identify the red line and talk in direct terms that here it is, if you people cross the Bangladesh, then we are at liberty to apply any possible factors, whether it is diplomacy, we have exhausted, whether it is the information, we haven't applied our information technology till now. Information, disinformation, and the malinformation, notwithstanding the allegations which are coming from Mr. Yunus. And next is the military. That is a very important component. I'm not saying that you go for a war against Bangladesh, but there are applications of resources which can be thought of. And last is the economy. We may have tried out, but there are many more factors which are available which India can apply if Bangladesh doesn't actually toe the line of rule of law. When I talk about the rule of law, it cannot change overnight. The same man who came to bring democracy as per his perception and understanding of the conspirators is the man who's actually throwing open all kinds of violence and disregard to the minority rights. Back to you, Shweta.
All right, Sudhakarji. Ambassador Prabhudayal, as far as the diplomatic fallout of escalation is concerned, and specifically the attack on Bangladeshi consulate here in India, unseen of, unheard of, how is that likely to impact the bilateral ties between the two countries? We know, Bangladesh is a key regional partner for India, diplomatically as well as strategically. How do you see the relationships going forward? Because Muhammad Yunus government continues to be in denial of everything wrong that seemed to be happening within the confines and the boundaries of Bangladesh today?
Well, as regards the attack on the Bangladesh consulate here in Atta, we have condemned it. The government of India has taken appropriate action. It has arrested some of the people who were involved in that incident. So we have tried to arrest the damage that could have been caused from that incident. But has the Bangladeshi government tried to arrest the damage which activities by extremist elements in their own country are causing to the bilateral relationship? Unfortunately, Bangladesh has not paid any serious attention to the fact that these activities are endangering the bilateral relationship. The general, who was the panelist just before me, outlined various steps which India can take. And I'm sure that if push comes to shove, then India will take some of these stern measures because of the fact that what is happening within Bangladesh is absolutely unacceptable in modern day terms. It is really condemnable. We have condemned it. Several other sections of the international media and international society have condemned it. But it seems to be like water sliding off a duck's back. The Bangladesh authorities are not taking serious cognizance of the international opinion about what is happening in their country, and they're not trying to check the activities of these extremist elements, with the result that the minorities, especially the Hindu minority, which is being particularly targeted. Of course, the other religious minorities also are being targeted, but the Hindu minority community is being singled out for attacks by these extremist Islamic elements, including, of course, the Jamaat-e-Islami. And unless the Bangladesh government takes proper and immediate action, I'm afraid that the bilateral relationship is going to suffer.
Right, bilateral relationships are likely to suffer. So, it does look like right now from what's happening in Bangladesh that there is a concerted attempt being made to wash off its own history by the way of, bringing down of statues of Mujibur Rahman, by the way of washing away of what essentially was a democracy, a liberal democracy, and paving way for Jamaat to have a strong hold of Bangladesh. What is the future of Bangladesh looking like to you if fundamental Islamists continue to have a say in day-to-day affairs? Because clearly right now the government seems to be not just sleeping through what's happening in Bangladesh, but also in the way, abating some of those elements to do as they do.
Well, I think Bangladesh is bound to face similar. It's simply because from the outset, Yunus had lost the opportunity to play the role which was expected of him as the Nobel laureate, that, to bring everybody on board except those who are accused. And he has chosen is basically to exclude Awami League and the 14-party alliance, who constitute at least more than 50% of the population at any given point of time. And this is the party which brought independence in the country. So if you look at the debate or the dialogue he has been holding, either with respect to the electoral reform or so-called unity of the political parties, he completely excludes the Awami League. So now if you exclude the Awami League, how could you think about future of a country when you have 50% of the population being thrown out? And what he has chosen is not only the Awami League, actually he has been trying to keep BNP out simply because he wants to build a party with the help of the Jamaat-e-Islami, and both the Begum Jia and Hasina should not be allowed to come in, and that's why he is delaying the election. And he knows it fully well that the reforms which he is undertaking at this point of time has no value or have no value, because the next elected government could actually throw them out into the dustbin. So whatever reforms he is undertaking is only an excuse to remain in power. They will form a political party possibly by March, April next year, and they will go to polls, have enough seats so that they could form the government with the Jamaat-e-Islami, and BNP would be the target. So he is not somebody who is preparing or acting himself to be the interim prime minister. He actually wanted to serve out the entire remaining tenure of Sheikh Hasina. So, people thought he was a Democrat. I mean, I think everybody has realized by now, and the wall is gradually coming to terms that this guy is not a Democrat. He is actually a dictator. So, you have to remember one particular fact. Nobody knew about the worldview of Muhammad Yunus. Please remember, he is a jamindar, he is a shoot-core, interest taker. And if you look at the EMI agents, how they collect the taxes, interest, and etc., he's one of those. Just because he got the Nobel Prize doesn't make him any different. And that's why if you look at the advisors of Yunus, the key advisors of Yunus are actually from the Chittagong Hood tracts. They belong to the people who were implanted on the lands of the tribal people in the 1970s. So they were born out of prejudices because they have conflict with the Chakma tribal groups. If they are your key advisor as the president and general secretary of the Jamaat-e-Islami, you can imagine what kind of influence they have on this Chittagonian Nobel laureate.
All right.
So that's why they are going towards civil war.
Absolutely. Major General Sudhakarji, I think we'll end this show on you, and I think it's important to try and analyze how the sour relationships are heading towards becoming more sour day after day between India and Bangladesh. How does that really affect India's broader strategy vis-a-vis its neighbors? We already have hostile neighbors by the way of Pakistan and China, and now Bangladesh, increasing hostilities between the two countries. How does one really redefine our geopolitics at a time when India seems to be surrounded by hostile neighbors?
Excellent, Shweta. It's a fantastic question you have raised. There are no quick solutions, but we need to remain flexible, mold our approach in keeping with the latest happenings around or in the environment. So when I say this, like the way we have gone in for a negotiated stance with China, with our northern adversary or the northern neighbor, we need to also exercise strategic patience and develop like-minded relationship with the countries which are like-minded in nature. One. Number two, we have to have a very formal, structured kind of a approach as far as possible, because things will never happen as per the planning. But what I am saying is that he who is able to anticipate these kind of windfalls or the kind of turnaround of the situations is the country which is going to be riding on the tiger's back. So therefore, our ability to anticipate must be enhanced by making a spectrum, a short-term, medium-term, long-term, identify the contingencies, and in order to address those contingencies, we have to identify the components which are relevant. This is as far as my analysis is concerned. But last but not the least, Shweta, is that there is a requirement to have the red lines as far as Bangladesh is concerned, because Bangladesh is not like any other immediate neighborhood. It is a neighborhood which has got borders with, if I respect my memory, with 5 states, provinces of our country, number one. Number two, it has got a maritime border in the Bay of Bengal, which is being exploited to the hilt by China. Number three, Bay of Bengal is witnessing a kind of a strategic rivalry, which I hadn't seen or heard in my service period. Whether you talk about the strategic rivalry between China and USA, or importantly, Shweta, through your channel, I want to tell the countrymen that here is a country which is harboring very dangerous components of terrorists. To name them, ISIS is there, Al-Qaeda is there, you have Hamas started showing interest to come in here, you have the terrorists which are operating there, all the tentacles of the octopus which is being headed by Iran, they have started showing interest, they are coming in. It is not Hizbul Mujahideen or Lashkar-e-Taiba or Sir Jaish-e-Mohammed. And therefore, there is a requirement to re-architect our design as far as the diplomacy is concerned. We can't afford to annoy everyone, but we need to have our red lines made and strategies developed or evolved so as to counter them effectively. As far as Bangladesh is concerned, we have to keep our options open in terms of the diplomacy, in terms of the economy, which we haven't done enough, and in terms of the military strategy. Military, in such times, when we exercise our diplomatic options, they tend to give us out of proportion result, which we have not applied. Not that I am a military general, but I am a student of geopolitics. We need to exercise this because the Bangladesh army, they regard Indian armed forces with very deep esteem and high regards in a high platform, so as our regards for the Bangladesh armed forces. This is one component which government of India will do well by actually, sending out the chief of the army staff to go and meet them, call on them. And there are different heads who can go from the armed forces to go and show some sanity and sense in their mind. Otherwise, there should be a clear-cut warning that they're going the Pakistan way. Let's take our mind back to what Imran Khan did. He is the one who sent Taliban to Afghanistan. And just see what Taliban is doing against Pakistan today. Back to you,
All right. All right, does look like Bangladesh heading already towards the Pakistani way. Sudhakarji, Ambassador Prabhudayal, Suhas, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on that show. It does look like the caretaker government of Bangladesh is losing control of its own happenings, and increasingly more anti-versatile elements who are trying to sabotage the democracy that Bangladesh once was, making its way to Bangladesh today. But shifting focus now, a Pakistani court has indicted jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan on charges of inciting his supporters to attack the country's military and its installations in 2023. Khan pleaded not guilty to the charges, while the court also indicted more than 60 others in the same case. Thousands of supporters of Khan had attacked and torched several military buildings and offices on 9th May 2023 to protest his arrest on graft allegations. At least 8 people were killed in violence, and Khan now faces anti-terrorism charges in connection with violence, considered the most serious challenge to the power of the military in Pakistan's history. Several of Khan's supporters have already been sentenced in connection with the violence. In time for a short break now. We'll be back in just a bit.
You remember when someone had hit our car? I had got him to pay up for all the damage.
Yeah, so?
If something goes wrong in this guaranteed returns share, I will complain to the exchange and get full compensation. See, there's an agreement.
Dad, you know what? Nobody can promise guaranteed high returns in the share market. Such illegal schemes are sheer fraud. The exchange will not give any compensation for these. That agreement is also useless.
सोच कर, समझ कर, invest कर.
Film and entertainment is definitely one of the levers for any country to build its brand.
We are getting global. I feel that we're just on the takeoff.
More and more films are becoming language agnostic.
Content is a universal language.
There's one audience in the world.
Absolutely. End of the day, we all are like brothers who have mutual respect for each other from a different land.
John T. Rhodes and Alan Donald, they're kind of the reason why I started playing.
I think most young spinners, when they're growing up, Shane Warne was just everything, wasn't he? He was one of the greats of all time.
Playing against India was always challenging in India.
We're not allowed to bowl a bouncer, so that tells you that, they want to see, runs on the board. Clean board.
It's totally different era you in and we are in.
This and more. Streaming on News9, plus subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens. France has now plunged into a political crisis. Michel Barnier has resigned as the Prime Minister after losing a no-confidence vote. French President Emmanuel Macron has asked an ousted Prime Minister Michel Barnier and his government to stay in caretaker capacity until a new Prime Minister is nominated. Now, Macron was meeting allies and senior politicians as he sought to swiftly appoint a new Prime Minister. French lawmakers on Wednesday, remember, voted to oust the Prime Minister after just 3 months in office. Now, this is the first time in over 60 years that the National Assembly approved a no-confidence motion against an incumbent government. Opposition parties had tabled the motion after Barnier, in a controversial move, used special powers to force through his budget without a vote. The Barnier government was proposed by the hard left after snap elections, which were announced by President Emmanuel Macron, but was backed by Marine Le Pen's National Rally, who had the power to topple the government. The turmoil follows a snap election called by Macron that aimed without success to halt the march of the far right and left no party or faction in the parliament with a majority. Out of options, Macron chose Barnier to lead the government. Now, with the government toppled so soon, Macron is likely to be forced to choose another viable successor. We're given to understand he's already meeting allies to do the same.
Pour l'adoption 331.
French opposition lawmakers brought the government down on Wednesday, throwing the European Union's second biggest economic power deeper into a political crisis. Prime Minister Michel Barnier lost the no-confidence vote after far-right and left-wing lawmakers teamed up on the motion. It's the first time a French government has lost a confidence vote since 1962. The crisis was ushered in by President Emmanuel Macron, who called a snap election in June, resulting in a polarized parliament. Barnier is expected to hand in his resignation to the president on Thursday, according to French media reports. France risks ending the year without a stable government or a 2025 budget, though the Constitution allows special measures that would avert a US-style government shutdown. Opposition lawmakers punished Barnier for opting to use special constitutional powers to adopt part of an unpopular budget without a final vote in Parliament. It sought 60 billion euros in savings to try to shrink the deficit. Far-right National Rally Party leader Marine Le Pen. This budget doesn't just attack France, it takes French people hostage, she said. The European Union has already been reeling from the implosion of Germany's coalition government, with this turmoil weakening it even more. It all comes just weeks before US President-elect Donald Trump returns to the White House. 3 sources told Reuters that Macron is aiming to install a new prime minister swiftly. One source said the president wanted to do that before a ceremony on Saturday, to reopen the Notre Dame Cathedral. Any new prime minister would face the same challenges as Barnier in getting bills, including the 2025 budget, adopted by a divided parliament. There cannot be a new parliamentary election before July. Macron's rivals say the only way to end the crisis is for him to resign, something he has so far shown little inclination to do.
And South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol is facing mounting political turmoil as Parliament gears up for an impeachment vote this weekend on Saturday. This follows a chaotic week after Yoon attempted to impose martial law, an order swiftly overturned by Parliament just within 6 hours. The dramatic move saw armed troops clashing with lawmakers near the National Assembly, sparking outrage within the country.
South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol is now set to face an impeachment vote in Parliament this weekend. On Tuesday, Yoon made a botched attempt to implement martial law, with Parliament lifting the order only hours later. But that wasn't before a chaotic night that saw armed troops deploy near the National Assembly and clash with lawmakers. On Thursday, the country's opposition Democratic Party said they'll put up a vote Saturday evening over whether to impeach Yoon. The opposition needs at least 8 ruling party votes to pass the bill. His ruling party is divided, but has said it will oppose impeachment. If the bill passes, South Korea's Constitutional Court will decide on impeachment in up to 180 days. Also on Thursday, Yoon accepted the resignation of Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun. Kim had recommended Yoon declare martial law on Tuesday, according to the Interior Minister, a senior military official, and the filing to impeach Yoon by opposition members. In a parliament hearing Thursday, Vice Defense Minister Kim Seon-ho said that his former boss had also ordered the deployment of troops. The Vice Minister also said he had been unaware of the martial law order until Yoon announced it. The martial law plan sought to ban political activity and censor the media. It sparked public anger in South Korea's streets and set off international concern. Yoon has been seen by Western leaders as a partner in the US-led effort to counter rising authoritarianism. On Wednesday, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said he had not been informed about Yoon's plans in advance, while his deputy called it a serious mistake.
And Syrian rebels have now captured the key city of Hama, bringing insurgents a major victory after lightning advance across northern Syria. In a new blow to President Bashar al-Assad and his Russian and Iranian allies, Syrian rebels have staged rapid advances in the past week. The Syrian army said it was redeploying outside the city to preserve civilian lives and prevent urban combat after what it called intense clashes. Rebels said that they were preparing to keep marching south towards Homs, Syria's great crossroads city that links the capital Damascus to the north and the coast. Footage shows the rebels inside Hama, some of them greeting civilians near a roundabout while others drove the military vehicles on mopeds. The rebels took the main northern city of Aleppo last week and have since pushed south from their enclave in the northwest of Syria. Now fighting has raged across villages outside Hama for more than 2 days now. And a groundbreaking report from Amnesty International accused Israel of committing genocide in its war against Hamas in Gaza. This is the first time a major human rights organization had made such a determination during an ongoing conflict. The 296-page report released today alleges that Israel's action in Gaza, including deliberate obstruction of aid, destruction of civilian infrastructure, and direct attacks on civilians, constitute genocide under international law. Now, Amnesty cited specific intent to destroy the Palestinian population in Gaza, claiming that Israel violated the Genocide Convention. The report highlights the unprecedented scale of destruction, displacement, and loss of life. Since the conflict began in October of 2023, Israel has reportedly targeted Gaza with an intensity unmatched by any other conflict in this century. Amnesty's Secretary General Agnes Callamard called the findings a wake-up call, urging the global community to recognize and halt what it calls atrocity crimes. The report builds on prior warnings from the UN, examines conditions in Gaza over 14 months, including the collapse of critical systems like healthcare, water, and food supply. It accused Israel of failing its legal obligations as an occupying power, while dismissing arguments that such actions were mere recklessness or disregard for civilian life. Amnesty also called for immediate global action. Recommendations include a UN-enforced ceasefire, sanctions on Israel and Hamas officials, and halting arms sales to both sides. The International Criminal Court has been urged to add genocides to its ongoing war crime investigation. This report, however, is expected to be highly polarized. Israeli officials have historically rejected such accusations, labeling them as biased and anti-Semitic. It is a development that will be likely intensifying debates on Israel's conduct and the broader implication for international law. The conflict has devastated Gaza and its 2.3 million residents, while also causing significant loss and trauma in Israel. Amnesty has stressed that war crimes committed by Hamas, including attack on 7th of October, do not justify genocide. As reactions pour in, this report marks a significant turning point in how international community may perceive the ongoing Israel-Palestinian conflict. And Bitcoin has now surged past $100,000 mark for the first time on Thursday, continuing a stellar rally for cryptocurrency sparked by expectations of a more friendly regulatory environment under Donald Trump, the president-elect. Take a look at this report.
Bitcoin has finally hit $100,000. The landmark was reached amid expectations of a friendlier US regulatory approach to cryptocurrencies under US President-elect Donald Trump. Investors are betting that his administration will unleash a boom era for the asset class. It caps a year in which the cryptocurrency's price has more than doubled. Bitcoin was also up about 45% in the 2 weeks since Trump was voted the next US president. A slew of pro-crypto lawmakers were also elected to Congress.
Hello, Bitcoiners. Thank you very much. Hello. It's good to be with you.
Trump embraced digital assets during his campaign.
If crypto is going to define the future, I want
That included promising to make the United States the crypto capital of the planet. He's also promised to accumulate a national stockpile of Bitcoin. Trump has said he'll set up a crypto advisory council, and he and his sons also announced a new crypto business, World Liberty Financial, in September. Under President Joe Biden, the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Treasury have cracked down on crypto companies for allegedly violating securities and anti-money laundering laws. Bank regulators discourage lenders from dabbling in crypto, and Congress failed to pass legislation that would help promote mainstream adoption. Under Trump, a softer regulatory stance is expected, and crypto executives say the industry is now pushing for a range of measures. That includes potential executive orders on access to banking services, as well as crypto-friendly picks in a range of roles, including a new SEC chair.
And US President-elect Donald Trump has announced his pick for the head of Small Business Administration. On Wednesday, Trump named former Senator Kelly Loeffler to lead the agency. Now, she is a staunch Trump supporter and donor, co-chaired his inaugural committee after his election victory last month. The former Georgia senator previously served on the Senate Agriculture Committee and was cleared of any wrongdoings in the 2020 stock trading investigation. With her background in business and politics, Loeffler's appointment signals Trump's focus on strengthening small businesses under his administration. And President-elect Donald Trump is also pushing back against legal challenges in Georgia. On Wednesday, Trump formally asked a Georgian appeals court to dismiss the criminal case against him. This move is the latest in Trump's ongoing legal battles as he prepares to take office once again.
President-elect Donald Trump asked a Georgia appeals court on Wednesday to end the criminal case against him in that state for attempting to overturn his 2020 election loss. Lawyers for Trump argued that his continued prosecution by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis would violate the U.S. Constitution as he prepares to return to the White House next month. His lawyers also argued that continuing to prosecute him would undermine his ability to govern. They urged the appeals court to remove Trump from the proceedings and to order a lower court judge to dismiss the case against Trump in its entirety. The other co-defendants can continue to press their appeal if Trump is removed from the case. A spokesperson for Willis did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Trump and 14 others face racketeering and other charges in Georgia for allegedly forming a criminal conspiracy to reverse Trump's narrow defeat in the battleground state in the 2020 election. Trump has pleaded not guilty and has argued that the case and others he has faced were politically motivated attempts to damage his campaign. Federal prosecutors have already dropped 2 criminal cases against Trump based on a Justice Department policy against prosecuting a sitting president.
And Cuba is now working to restore power after a massive electrical grid collapsed on Wednesday, leaving the island in darkness. The latest blackout highlights the fragile state of Cuba's aging power generation system, which has struggled with frequent outages.
Cubans woke up to darkness on Wednesday as the Caribbean island's electrical grid collapsed, the latest in a string of nationwide blackouts. Cuba said it has started restoring power and expects the system to be back online by Thursday. The communist-run government closed schools and ordered non-official workers to stay home, while it prioritized hospitals and water pumping facilities. The country's energy minister, Vicente de la O. Levy, said the country's largest power plant had shut down around 2 a.m.
We think that today we'll be able to advance significantly with the recovery. Tomorrow, we'll be able to have the conditions to get it working, to recover the system. We've already started the recovery process. Ya está en un proceso de recuperación.
De la O. Levy said several other major power plants were undergoing maintenance and were offline when the Matanzas plant failed. But the failure underscores the increasingly frail state of the country's grid, one that has fallen into disarray amid fuel shortages, natural disasters, and economic crisis. Cuba's oil-fired power plants are already obsolete and we're struggling to keep the lights on. That was before oil imports from Venezuela, Russia, and Mexico dwindled, contributing to multiple nationwide blackouts over 2 months. Last week, the government issued a decree ordering state and private businesses to generate more of their own electricity from renewable resources. Shortages in the country, including food, medicine, water, and electricity, have made life increasingly unbearable, and Cubans have fled in record-breaking numbers in the past 3 years. Cuba blames U.S. sanctions, which complicate financial transactions and the purchase of fuel for the crisis.
Airbus is set to cut over 2,000 jobs in its defence and space division, roughly 5% of its total workforce in that sector. The move comes as Airbus is now facing mounting competition from US companies in the satellite market.
Airbus is cutting just over 2,000 jobs in its defence and space division. That's about 5% of headcount in the unit. More than half the cuts will come in its space systems business, which has been making heavy losses on satellites. The company brought forward a statement confirming the news after reports by Reuters that cuts were planned. However, the restructuring is less fierce than expected. Back in October, the aerospace giant had said 2,500 jobs could go. Now it says the new plan will involve no compulsory redundancies. The cuts will be spread across the firm's 4 host nations, France, Germany, Spain and the UK. Airbus says the relevant governments have been briefed on the plan, which is part of a restructuring dubbed Proton. The space business has been a growing problem for European firms, which have specialised in large, complex satellites. They've been caught out by the move to smaller, cheaper orbiters, like those used by Elon Musk's Starlink space internet business. France's Thales is also in talks with unions over cuts to its space unit. Earlier this week, Reuters reported that it would join forces with Airbus and Italy's Leonardo to build a European rival to Starlink.
And human tissue samples from Oxford's Space Innovation Lab are currently aboard the International Space Station as a part of a groundbreaking experiment to uncover why the aging process accelerates in space.
Humans age faster in space, and this new research may find out why. Scientists could also find ways to slow down age-related health issues, all without having to use astronauts. Human tissue samples from Oxford's Space Innovation Lab are in orbit on the International Space Station. Meanwhile, Dr. Gharda Al-Saleh is leading a team which observes identical cells on Earth.
And we would be able, by comparing and analyzing the data coming from these 2 different organoids in the International Space Station and also on Earth, to be able to study the process of aging and the impact of the microgravity and the space in general on the aging process.
Decades of space travel have revealed how microgravity, the sensation of weightlessness, affects the human body, diminishing bone density and weakening the immune system. And Al-Saleh's goal is to discover methods of slowing age-related illness, whether someone is on Earth or up in space.
Astronauts suffer from muscle atrophy, a problem with their joint, with their bone, and also with the immune system. When we noticed this, we found that this actually at some point similar to a different age-related disease. And this led us to ask the question if the space might provide us with an accelerating aging model. And if it is the case, that means we can actually be able to study aging very faster, because this has happened in very short time, while aging on Earth needed different years.
Plans for missions to Mars and even beyond make finding a solution more important.
And that's all we have on the show. Thank you very much for watching.
News9 ग्लोबल समिट में आए सभी साथियों को मेरा नमस्कार। मुझे इस बात की भी खुशी है कि News9 इंग्लिश न्यूज चैनल भी लॉन्च किया जा रहा है।
Special congratulations to TV9. Now you are truly becoming global.
And therefore, I must congratulate Varun Dasji. He has, in his own way, started an epoch-making trend.
The News9 Global Summit is the latest example to demonstrate that India and Baden-Württemberg are getting closer in many different respects.
I compliment Mr. Jubali, Mr. Varun Das, and Mr. Casper, conceptualizing and organizing this grand platform.
And I really want to thank TV9 Group, and it's a harbinger of many things to come.
Bollywood is Indian mainstream. That narrative needs to change.
More local is more global.
Korean drama phenomenon followed by Korean pop is amazing.
Today is all about who's making the best content.
I just want to have your thoughts on the future of creativity.
Every technology comes with a lot of arenas, new avenues for us to explore.
Considered a wonderful product when it was invented. It solved many problems of human lives. We are talking about plastic.
Did you know the plastic in your house is as old as the oldest person in your family?
India almost produces somewhere around 9.3 million metric tons of plastic every year.
It is not dissolving, it is not evaporating, it is not vanishing from sight, it is just breaking down into our soil and ocean. So plastic is just going to be there.
So we need to go back to the questions, we need to go back to the start. When did water bottles come to our consciousness? Why was it marketed like that?
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
India's neighborhood has been in turbulence all throughout.
Sheikh Hasina was forced to resign and take refuge in India.
Myanmar itself is facing an enormous internal crisis of sorts.
Periods of India's greatest strength was when the neighborhood did not have a problem with it.
There are events that are larger than your ability to control them. What you have to do is to make the best of those events and move forward.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
In the fight against child rape and murder, the police plays a crucial role. Their involvement is both proactive and reactive. It includes interventions at the prevention levels and investigation levels as well. Since the Nirbhaya case in 2012, which led to tougher laws against rape, little appears to have changed. But stopping crime against women cannot be left to the police alone.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.